And joining us to give a little more insight is our pal John Keim, covers the Washington football team for ESPN.com. Good morning, John.
What up, fellas? How are you?
How late were you up last night?
2, something like that.
Not bad.
Probably not as late as EB.
No, I was able to get. I found a way to get to sleep.
Okay.
But I tell you what, John, I don't want to throw it away. All I know is that this team looked like they were down and out for many parts of it. It really wasn't. I think, John, until they beat Pittsburgh, where deep down in my heart I thought they could do this. When they pulled that off, then I thought, you know what? They actually can do this.
Yes, and I agree. Listen, people should enjoy this one because, first of all, as you see here, it doesn't happen often. But I also think, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, because you're a fan. I'm a reporter.
Yeah.
But it feels like for this one, it's. I think fans get a sense that something is being built more than that this is just all they are. It's just that, hey, this is a young team with a new coach, and they're going in the right direction. I think it feels like to me that that's where a lot of the excitement comes from rather than, oh, you got in at 7 and 9. And I think that's got to be part of this whole thing for fans because I've noticed a different level of excitement around this team ever since that win. And that win, I would say this. I think the Dallas win got people excited because it was Dallas.
Yeah.
I think the Pittsburgh win got them excited because, oh, wow, maybe they could do this. And I think you're exactly right. And I think, what they've consistently shown is that resiliency. And in many ways, it was fitting how hard it was for them last night because that's what this entire year, the entire year was like that for them.
Hey, John, you're a guy that breaks down the film. We don't necessarily do that. I wanted to get your take on, it's not one of the top topics because people are going to talk about Alex Smith and Chase Young and all that first, but this was a team that started in the back with Landon Collins, who they pay a lot of money to, and Troy Apke, and at the end of the year, it's Cameron Curl and Jeremy Reeves, and they look pretty good. What have you seen on film?
Well, first of all, with Curl especially, he does. It sounds basic, but he's where he's supposed to be and when. He just does his job, And it sounds, again, simplistic, but that's what it is. And but that comes from being a very smart player, which comes from a lot of film study. And I know Landon Collins is that kind of, he's a big-time film guy too. And he's been a smart player. He's, I think, a little bit more aggressive going after some things. But that's what Cam Curl does. He is where he's supposed to be. But what also separates him, though, is the ability to play coverage. And you saw it on Zach Ertz. That's not something that Landon Collins was going to do. And he was able to disrupt. That's a timing throw on his interception. That's all about timing. And he completely disrupted Zach Ertz from getting out there. That goes back to when he was at Arkansas. He was a corner at Arkansas, and he played both the safety spots there, but he played corner, and he can use his corner skills in those situations. But he jammed him completely and disrupted him. And then Jeremy Reeves, I've always liked that kid, and not necessarily thinking that he's going to be a starter, but a guy who should be on the roster. And there are some times where he's had a couple hiccups since he's been playing. But again, if you know how to take angles in the backfield, you're going to be better than what we saw early in the year. And because that was a major problem. I like how aggressive he is coming up to hit people, and not just coming up to hit, but he fishes a play when he does that. That's another difference. So the one thing with Rivera, if you look at his safeties throughout his history, typically, they wouldn't be paying Landon Collins that kind of money if he were in charge because they didn't pay safeties when he was in Carolina. They're paying the front, and then you can work around that. And if you have safeties that do their job and are smart and all that, I think, and not that Apke, I think is, and like I said, Landon Collins is a smart player. I think he's at times a little bit more aggressive, and he's not as good in coverage, but he's really good against the run. We've seen that. So that's not necessarily a knock on him. It's why these guys, I think, did well. And this front is really good, but they just play so well off it because they really, especially Curl, they just do their jobs.
Yeah, I love Curl. He's just one of those guys. I think Holcomb in a similar way. They're just around the football all the time.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. But I want to talk about Chase for a second because, I don't know about Ron. I mean, his personal courage is off the charts. His track record speaks for itself. But to me, this team is, like you said, is about the young players, and nobody embodies it more than Chase. In fact, I can't remember a defensive rookie who's been sort of thrust in this sort of natural leadership role easier than Chase Young. I mean, he just fits it. This whole team embodies him. The camera is on him. He's got that star, that it quality to him, right? You can't take your eyes off him, whether he's on the field or he's on the sideline. He just, to me, is what this team is all about.
I think you're absolutely right. He provides a star power from a rookie defensive player you rarely see.
Yeah.
To the point where it's amazing how guys respond to him considering his age, but they respond to him because it comes naturally. He's just being sincere.
Yeah.
Like he's not out there telling them to do things and then going home and doing something else. You know, he'll pick the brain of all these veterans. You know, he'll go back, I think I've talked about this before, you know, whether on my podcast, maybe even on here, but he'd go back and watch Ryan Kerrigan's game film from Purdue to see how he developed as a pass rusher, and then he picks his brain. You know, so guys see that. So when you see that, it's like you know that this is not BS, that he's just doing it for the cameras. It's not for that. It's because the guy wants to win. And, you know, I think kind of the remarkable thing with him is how well Justin Herbert has played, and I rarely get asked, did this team make the right choice? That's, you know, that because, you know, I mean, Herbert's been great, and, you know, but Chase Young is that guy on the other side. Now, you know, it's a quarterback versus an end, but end is a high impact position, and I don't think it's, you know, you can see where this kid's career is going. And that's why, like, people just don't ask, because like this guy is a star. I mean, that's where he's at, and I think what he's, and I tweeted this last night, but he to me is an example of when you have talent that works hard, this is the result. And he's just got a personality that is just very easygoing, you know, not easygoing, but very easy to get sucked into.
Infectious.
Infectious, thank you. And yes, and I think like all the stuff that they've gone through, one of the things that has been a key here has been that the youth on this team, and you have to go back and give credit to a lot of the stuff that was done before the staff arrived, because there's a scouting staff in place that brought these guys here, and then I think Rivera did a good job of being a very steady hand during a very turbulent year, and then you have a guy like Chase Young who makes plays and is just a stud. So yeah, it all adds up. It all helped.
We're talking to John Keim from ESPN.com. You wrote on ESPN.com about Washington's perseverance, and Alex Smith certainly has had a lot of perseverance, but we all saw his lack of mobility. What did Ron Rivera say after the game about what he saw from his starting quarterback?
Yeah, I think they clearly. Well, one thing he did say is that he flirted at one point with the idea of putting in Taylor Heineke. I think because they were, you know, ahead in the game, that you're going to trust the veteran in that situation, a guy like Alex Smith. But I think they certainly recognized that he wasn't quite as mobile, and I think it even seemed to affect the play calling a little bit. He felt like that Scott Turner called at times a game where they wanted him to get the ball out quick. But I think that's also smart, because, and it wasn't just about his mobility, to be honest. I didn't think the line was giving him the protection I thought it would. That you know, against that front, considering they didn't have, you know, Barnett and Fletcher Cox. There's still there's still some good players there. It's not like they're all scrubs, but so I think, but he did talk about that part of it as well, which was a nod to his situation and his status. But Smith clearly wanted to play, and he was telling guys, like, you know, I think he kept telling Ron that he was, you know, I'm going to be out there. I mean, he was just determined, and so I think you know, a guy like Rivera, any coach, a lot of coaches are going to get just sucked into that, because.
So when you say he flirted with Heineke, you're not talking about during the game. You're talking about during the game.
No, during the game. During the game.
You thought about going to Heineke.
Yeah, briefly, and then that was it. And he didn't really go into too much why, but I think you see.
Well, I think he had to. I mean,
yeah.
I know the fans were thinking that,
Yeah.
But as I said this before, he then kind of responded with that 2-minute drive, which culminated with the great touchdown pass to Logan Thomas. So
and that,
had he not done that, I wouldn't have been shocked if they went with Heineke in the third quarter.
Right.
But he was able to move the ball down the field with a couple of downfield throws. And I said this before, you don't see many downfield throws from Alex Smith. It's just not just not in his nature. But I think he hit one to Cam Sims on that drive over the middle. Cam was wide open, but it was like, okay, nice throw. And then he had that one to Logan Thomas, obviously, for the touchdown.
And I think it comes back to trust, too, because you know what Alex Smith is going to give you. Even if he's hurt, you know that, like, that drive's a classic example of an Alex Smith drive. And that, even like the Cam Sims one, it wasn't like some 40-yard pass. It was a 20-yard pass over the middle because he was wide open. And, you know what I mean? And so it wasn't, there was this, it was the right football play. And on that drive, he was able to spread the ball around and threw a really nice ball to Logan Thomas, just dropped it in over the linebacker's head, so his accuracy was there, and he executed the situation well. So, and he got the ball out fast, which I think is what he's been better at. And so when he gets the ball fast too, it gives the check down guys. I mean, people complain about check downs, and it's first of all, this is what he does, but a lot of quarterbacks check down. And I think every time, it's funny because you see like this fan base, every time a guy checks down, some people pull their hair out. It's like, well, this is what, Drew Brees throws a lot of short passes. Now they do attack more. And I know that Alex has that reputation. It's definitely there. We all know that. But sometimes when he gets to that check down quick, it gives that guy like McKissick a chance to do more after the catch. That's, and that's going through the reason, the progressions, and trusting all of that. And so, like, those check downs can be good. The problem is if that's all you do, yes. But on that drive, you're right. He did. He attacked multiple ways, and I think that's, it's the trust factor. If you're a Rivera and you're trying to win a division, who do you trust in this situation? Who has been in this situation? Well, it's Alex Smith. And, are you going to bet against a quarterback who has gone through what he has? Just like, I think we even talked one time, are you going to bet, a couple weeks ago, like, are you going to bet against a team whose coach beat cancer during the season and whose quarterback came back from 17 surgeries? I mean, how do you bet against that team? There's a mindset that develops, and Alex Smith has it. And I think, again, I don't know what point he was truly thinking about it, but if you are, then you got the lead, and he's like, you know what, I just trust this guy, and let's roll with him.
All right, all that being said, don't want to get too carried away, but let's just look ahead to next week for a little bit. Look, you never want to face Tom Brady, certainly not in the postseason. But I'd rather face a guy, even though he's a legend, a Hall of Famer, arguably the all-time greatest, I'd rather face a guy who's not that mobile. At least, maybe we could pin our ears back and pressure him a little bit and see what happens.
The times in the playoffs where he's had his most problem is when you can't get to him. Now, you've got to get to him because, obviously, and I think part of the way you have to get to him too is not just the pressure has to be helped by the coverage. So if you're just playing off and giving up those 10-yard comebacks, it's going to be a long day, even if you think you can get there, because the ball will be out fast. And so you need the coverage is going to have to hold up against a pretty good set of receivers, at least long enough for those guys to get there. Otherwise, it's going. I don't care who you have up front; he'll pick you apart. One thing they've done well too, I feel like, is their blitz schemes are pretty good. You're going to have to hit a few of those. But yeah, I mean, I think this is the kind of team that Tampa's going to be worried about with this front because of exactly what you just said. So,
but conversely, Washington has to worry about JPP and Ndamukong Suh after what we were just talking about with the immobile quarterback. Right,
and yes, and I think this team clearly needs a strong game on the ground with Gibson and whomever, because I don't think you're going to be able to just drop back against that front right now. But especially because I don't know that Alex Smith is going to get much better in a week. So I think it'll be a tough matchup in that regard, but we'll see.
Hey, what if they said, I know we got to go, but what if they said the actual injury is to Alex? Is it just like a strained calf? Is that what it is?
Strained calf. That's what they've termed it, yeah. And it just makes it complicated because, when you have the injury he did, and you're taking so many tissues from all these parts, like it just seems like it takes longer to recover from that. It wasn't related to it necessarily as far as why it happened, but certainly recovering from it, it becomes more probably becomes a little bit tougher. I mean, it stands to reason. So, yeah.